the situation we find in and the next chapter in our struggle. Introduction. The struggle of the Oromo people has been going on from time to time. She went through many different stages and situations. Nowadays, and we are in a new chapter of struggle. Especially in 2018 since the break, the struggle you entered into properly analyzed in depth and looked at the victories. It is necessary to protect the available and survive the dangers we face. What is this chapter of struggle we have entered after 2018 with the previous ones? Unique. What's okay, what's wrong? What have we moved to as a nation and country, and where are we going to go? It is very important to look at it carefully. This article, recent points during public debates in the United States and Europe conducted, analyzing these issues, it focuses on pointing out measures that might be beneficial if implemented. What is the current state of the Oromo people and their struggle? What has this struggle achieved so far? For the future, where might she go? What to do to minimize the risk? Better. She aimed to find answers to the questions. Chapters of the struggle. The struggle is like any national struggle. It is going through 4 phases and entering the 5th. Despite the chapters of the national struggle: 1. The revival chapter. 2. Reconstruction chapter. 3. Chapter on state formation, and 4. It is the chapter of ascendancy to power. 5. Chapter democratization. Let us follow the first 4 chapters of the struggle one by one. We will look at it and return to it later in the next chapter, 5. 1.1. The revival chapter. A people must first of all have a collective awakening to overcome collective oppression, collective consciousness. That is, the people, its common identity, culture, history, language, common friends and enemies, and to believe together that the oppressed and the liberated are common. Have. When an oppressive regime forcibly breaks and occupies a people, such as, the people create a common identity so that they do not rebel and resist the breakdown. Undermining that is a well-known strategy. This is the case with the Oromo people, had happened. When he started his struggle, the first thing he did was to awaken each other. Since the 1960s, the people have been able to strengthen, and that he has the same oppression and the same fate. A strong campaign was launched to raise awareness. The Afran Kolu movement, the Maccabi movement, the Bail movement and the Protestant movement. The Western side as well as the opening of Radio Mogadishu initiative. It is the awakening. Especially the work in terms of various ensembles, presentation and the radio side of this awareness work, is the largest of these. The awakening work was a quick result. Unloading paved the way for the transition to the next, constructive chapter. 1.2. Reconstruction phase. When an oppressive regime has subjugated a people, it does not. Collective action for the rebel by destroying the things he has in common. Take steps to prevent it. Its common symbols and emblems, culture and language, and dismantles its social and administrative structures. So the national struggle. In the second chapter in building the people they began to awaken. It is a transition. This is to make a common logo, symbol, stand and structure. The aim of the oppressive regime is to destroy the common culture, language, history, symbols and structures of the people, to seek to destroy the oppressed, the people at the national level, nationhood, to lose. Therefore, the reconstruction work is a systematic step, that the people would gain national status by opposing that oppression, to enable them. The aim of the national struggle is to unite the people and their land, making the people and its territory congruent from foreign oppression. One of the successful tasks of the nationalist project is the identity of the people and the land, rebuilding, establishing the country in the minds of the people as having one nation and one country, imagined community, is to do. This reconstruction work in the Oromo struggle is the last days, in the 1960s and early 1970s. The order, re-emblem of the nation, boasting of gaddaa as a collective system, organization. Establish a common political Oromo Liberation Front, O.L.F, formulate an alphabet to write his language, media, newspapers and magazines, as well as radio. To start serving the people and restore the country that the Oromo had in common, giving and boasting the name of Oromia to want to create. Other activities are reconstruction efforts. Despite the harsh conditions of the oppressive regime, the reconstruction work has been going on for years. In the 1970s and 1980s in a faster form and with greater sacrifice. Done. The name of Oromo-ness is deprived of the name of hatred and the nation, replaced by an uncalled-for self-return to the legal name Oromo. It became the name by which the people called themselves. In the late 1980s, that it is being rebuilt and that the country called Oromia is also the mind of the nation, in which it was understood by foreign scholars. During then denying and dispersing the identity of this nation in Ethiopia, be clear even to those who waste the Oromo struggle that it is impossible to continue. The 1974 cultural exhibition in Finland builds it had taken the minds and hearts of the people to the next level. The people they awakened had a common culture, language, history, emblem and country of mind, in which they created the next chapter of the mind actualizing the imagined. The work of awakening and building, somewhat successfully executed to move on to the next chapter facilitated. 1.3 Chapter on State Formation. The aim of the national struggle is the state of the nation and its boundaries are known. It is to build. The reason for the need to stand up for the country is that a people has an interest, structures and organizations to advance its common, because he needs to lead. Joint work across structures organizes the state in favor of advancing the common interest, is the highest form of social organization. In addition, one people, it is the state system that violates the rights and interests of the individual. So the aim of a nation's struggle is that system that harms its interests, occupation and changing it to his advantage or the existing system of government, destroy or break away from it and build a new system. The conflict is whether we will build an independent country or occupy the same interests. It is also the reason why the saying "we will protect" was born early in the Oromo. With this, the founders of the Oromo struggle understood the importance of the state, mourning, understanding and agree on the existing system. We occupy the interest. Do we use it for ourselves or do we tear it down and tear it apart for our own alone? The debate over whether to build was born early. This difference, although the divisions among the leadership led to the abandonment of the struggle, the idea of fate, determination and the work continued. That means the joy, both structures of jointly advancing the interests of the Oromo people of Oromia, agreed on the formation of the Orissa alone or Ethiopia, in which she would continue to rule for future judgment. As the Oromo resolve serious conflicts, when they are in trouble, let the matter prevail. They manage for tomorrow. The method of let's manage this question is the idea that would have been scattered, played an incalculable role in saving the struggle from great destruction. After these achievements, in 1991, Orissa became the mind of the people and the books was being built on the ground and the intention of building a nation and a system succeeded in making it a government. The Oromo alphabet for it by scholars, researched and selected and secretly taught became the language of work and education. The formation of Orissa has undergone three major transformations of the. She brought the next steps that paved the way for the nation's struggle. They are, in their own language, learning, mother tongue literacy, bureaucracy, and it is urbanization. These three things are quick, making nationalism even stronger and the struggle stronger, played a major role in moving to chapter. Nationalism was born in Europe in the 19th century, is due to economic transition, political transition and read about economic, political, then socio-cultural transformations, writing, urbanization and the rapid expansion of bureaucracy. To elaborate on these three main variables, A. Mother tongue literacy, the requirements of a people. One of the things that leads to the national level is having a common language. And for the nationalism of that nation to flourish, that nation in that language, use, learning and practice for communication. A people must develop solidarity before developing nationalism, if it is interdependent by blood relationship and land settlement. That is, an impending accident may directly harm a member of the group. Campaign together to fight each other, direct risk to members of the group. Nation is a form, but this applies to a population group of a limited number and settlement. A large number of people living on a vast land who shock each other and for each other. The relationships and bonds that exist are not only physical but also mental, if it is conscientious, psychological rather than physical. A large number of people settled on a large area to know each other and interests. The main reason for the community to help each other is to learn in their own language. It is reading. In Europe in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution, the printing press / invention and due to factories, manufacturing, expansion of the population leaving agriculture and moving from rural to urban areas, literacy and nationalism to flourish, paved the way. Empires suppressing many nations in one place were being formed, and as a result many independent countries were born. They can't. After 1991, the Oromo had a great opportunity in this regard. The language itself, learning and the expansion of education wants a new generation. Nationalism created a language sharpened by self-learning. Banking data. Global data indicates that after 1991, the number of children at home, school enrollment, primary school enrollment rate increased rapidly. Figure 1, percentage of children in the country in primary school. Admitted, gross primary school enrollment ratio. Additionally, as shown in the next figure, the percentage of population. Overall literacy rate after 1991 accelerated, increased. Data from the World Bank at the time showed that, in 1974 when Haile Selassie fell, no one was literate. Could only be 12% in 2012 when the youth struggle was planned 44.5%. When the struggle intensified, it was estimated to reach 50%. Figure 2, expansion of education from 1997 to 2012. As can be seen from the figure above, during the previous regime, especially in the year, in the empire, Oromo were largely out of school. A few numbers. Even educated that nationalism, which the rulers want to adopt, rejected and developed their own nationalism. After 1991, because of the work of awakening and building, Oromo nationalism to some extent was so strong that it was difficult to suppress. It was necessary to allow them to study and work on their own. In addition, the system, aid from Western countries to expand education coverage. It worked, though the quality was poor. In 1974, education coverage in Ethiopia, 12%, 22.4% in 1994, 29.5% in 2001 and 2022 is estimated to be more than 40%. Estimation of registration ratio, that the first class gross is 91% and the net enrollment ratio is 71%. Display. Although these numbers are high enough to be doubtful, they are indicative. Supported by other social factors, the 1990s and 2000s, in which the level of literacy has increased rapidly forever, it is not to be denied. These widespread public literacy opportunities are professionals and teachers. The use of Oromo and Oromo language. While the English, before it became the language of instruction, most of the teachers in Oromia were foreigners, were the characters. The language of instruction has changed and many teachers have become Oromo. This allows teachers and students to develop a common identity, made them have to address the shortage of teachers who can teach in Oromo. In the accelerated training, teachers from several districts, meeting at a training institute and helped them become more nationalist. This mass literacy occurred when the three chapters of the struggle, viz., awakening, building and creating a country, implemented in all corners of the country where the will of the people is their children. Enrollment in education and teaching in their own language. This expansion of self-language learning has affected the Oromo community and its future destiny. How can it have a transformative and irreversible effect on? As mentioned above, in an illiterate society, identity is shaped by environmental and relational events such as family, by community and geographical ties. The children of all parts of Oromia, exposure to the same educational curriculum, policies, their strong common national identity and ideology. Literacy, on the other hand, means national ideas, nationalist ideals, to facilitate the rapid spread, work. Facial/body contact is not required to work awareness, made us become. And the ability of historical, literary, and mythological societies, enhanced recording and transmission dramatically. Collective history and memory. Collective memory of the nation was transmitted through folklore, literature, and the media. Registration is acceptable for storage and distribution. And the ability of historical, literary, and mythological societies, enhanced recording and transmission dramatically. Collective history and memory. Collective memory of the nation was transmitted through folklore, literature, and the media. Registration is acceptable for storage and distribution. Therefore, skills education. Increasing the community's intentions to transmit and perpetuate nationalism between people who are not related by blood and do not know each other physically, made social contacts stronger. This means that after 20 years of writing and reading, the alphabet of the educated became many times more than they could. During, for the first time, millions of native Oromo males, hundreds settled apart from the same book story. They learned the same and began to grow mentally connected. It means that, in addition, they all sing the same melody every morning, affirming love and allegiance to the common country of Oromia. As a people with the same history, language, oppression, and destiny, they grew up holding body-mind. After this, the generation of the alphabet. It is the generation that has been sharpened and raised in this way. The language itself, learning and the expansion of education were not consistent with the youth movement. It would not be in vain to ignite and succeed. B. A bureaucratization, Orissa on the ground legally. Following recognition, an administrative structure was established. From the environment up to the village, this structure had to be filled with workers. The bureaucracy, that is, these administrative structures and staff. The structure of Orissa. How is your stat different from the previous one? Even before, from top to bottom, isn't the administrative structure filled with employees? Raising questions that it is necessary. During the previous Darg regime, the existing structure was not in Oromo. They work. It was not told by the Oromo. Orissa is structurally what? All the districts inhabited by the Oromo are directly central. They are called in Ethiopia. The creation of Oromia and the regions in which the Oromo settlers were formed alone and began to be called directly to the Oromo center. For the first time, the Oromo leadership began to be called upon for each other. It is his calling for the state system of governance. However, the system, indirectly controlled by the TPLF, the state government, despite the lack of full power in Orissa, the cooperation between the Oromo leadership, starting with the bureaucracy of Oromo-ness intertwined and their calling, invented for Orissa. Bureaucracy in the name of administration, laid the foundation for the subsequent establishment of a true and strong system of governance. The more the Orissa bureaucracy grows in numbers, the more it will end up, reached nearly 500,000 during the Way-in regime. That is, the 500,000 Oromo rulers were not only created but also hired. It means that this created a new class for the nation. This class is the strength of the nation. In the struggle that erupted in 2014, the internal cooperation of the regime, internal ally, to get us strong. In those days before the Oromo system, there are very few in the government, and that is, they were having low awareness and the struggle was more. She was being excluded from the system for the rest of her life. During the youth struggle, however, the uprising, external action was also used by those inside the system. Cooperation is for the outside world. This interior played a major role in accelerating the victory. On the other hand, the increase in the number of employed Oromo has increased the class, created a new community. The class of life and its future, means connected with. This class is the supreme ruler of the country. It's reaping together. In other words, the strategy of indirect rule. The TPLF uses the bureaucratic class to create a frenzy among the peasants, but it is directly visible to those in it. This leads to ethnic discrimination, directly affects this class. For example, one native Oromo and one Tigrin from the same university, if they graduate together and start working in the government within a few years, at different stages of life, this is a disadvantage as a nation, enough to be tested on a personal level as well as people, not only by their nationalism but also by personal enthusiasm and jealousy, facilitated their joining the struggle. The bureaucracy in general, the formation of the elite to practice collective action, facilitating then the attitude of the people in the system toward the nation, not only by personal jealousy and envy but also by the oppressive regime. It created opportunities not only to push them from the outside but also to paralyze them from the inside. C. Urbanization, the form of urbanization in Oromo. It is very important to consider what it means to be created. The former is the reason, by the trader. Cities like Jimma and Dir Dawa were created in this way. The places of the settlement of the Oromo kings, for example, such as Jimma, Nakomti, and etc., rapidly developed into cities. The second is the cities, built in connection with the invasion of Minilik. Even after Minilik, the places, the army of Haile Selassie encamped and grew into the city. The Oromo, he sold these cities to them and bought them in, but he did not choose to live in them. If even the district governors are Oromo, on the day of the city, they would render government services and return to their rural homes in the evening. This is because there is a push factor and not a pull factor. It was for us. Going into the city is like diminishing one's identity and taking away one's dignity. It was considered to be unloading. Instead, as Amharic, or renouncing one's own religion, and it was a place of reception. The cities are the seat of the oppression of the Oromo army, because it is killing and plundering, and the culture and language he does not speak. You have nothing to attract to yourself unless it is to oppress our people. We were. If a person had worked in the countryside and acquired wealth, he would have worked in the city. He goes out of the farm and into business. The Oromo, however, believe that the urban situation is to push herself away, and the rich raised his house in the countryside and his cattle. Very few entered the city except increasingly. Due to these historical influences, the number of Oromo in the cities of Oromia, there was very little to live. The residents of the city are of the nation. There were very few who were Oromo. As shown in Figure 2 below, this situation changed rapidly after 1991, when the percentage of residents in the cities of Orissa showed a significant change. Why? The things that previously pushed the Oromo out of the city are decreasing, because they are increasingly attractive. Table 1, 2018 to 2015 Urban population. 1984-1994 2007-2015. Percent urban population 1.74.69.221. Cities of residents. 20,007-173,246. The population of the medium-sized cities of Orissa and percentage of urban population between 1994 and, we see a rapid increase. For example, at this time the city of Aadaa grew by 87%, while that of the city of Dir Dawa grew by 84%, is estimated to have increased. Urban population can grow for two reasons. 1. By children born in that city. The second is people, by migrating from rural to urban areas. These are the years set out above. The population of Ethiopia has been increasing by less than 3% on average. The urban population increased by 5.4%. In addition, because the number of children born to an urban mother is lower than that of a rural mother, children born in cities, large population increases in cities, cannot be a sufficient reason for this. Therefore, migration plays a major role in the increase in the population of the city. It means that it was made from the countryside to the city. The rural population. The majority of the settlers in Oromia are Oromo, rural people. The majority of the migrants to the city are Oromo. The administrative structure is to be occupied by the Oromo, attracted the Oromo to the city. Lack of rural agricultural land. Increasingly, rather than waiting for the young to inherit the fatherland, he was forced to enter the city to trade or be hired. Cities are places, becoming a job search, and the number of Oromo in the city, another reason for the increasing number. These circumstances are the number of Oromo. Migration to the city led to a rapid increase. During the Dagu and Nugusa eras, there were fewer Oromo in the cities because the Oromo struggle was dependent on the countryside. As counts, increasing the number of urban Oromo living in the city, became more comfortable. The increase in the number of Oromo in the city is the result of the struggle of the youth, played a major role in his later career. When the number of Oromo, the city was small, and these cities were anti-Oromo struggle and Modhi. They were the enemies of the struggle. The number of Oromo living in the city is increasing. It facilitated the transformation of cities from enemies to friends of the struggle. But the evidence of the successful struggle of the youth in the cities has been conducted. The struggle of this cycle has been going on for 20 years. Later, at a high rate after reaching the so-called paralyzed stage, went and took power out of foreign hands. The main driver of this speed is played the three things listed above: the realization of self-language learning, bureaucratic expansion, and urbanization. The movement that overthrew the TPLF regime was one of youth coalition, bureaucracy, and conducted by city residents. The strategy developed is the three variables, with this in mind. By the young nationalist of the present, sharpened the same understanding without being limited by land distance, acquired the structural bureaucracy of Orissa seized power and leverage. Denial of excitement and jealousy gathered in the city with rebelled, our rural residents and farmers also played a major role. Yet the TPLF regime rebels from a communist analysis. He was afraid of peasant uprising and paid more attention to it, giving a 1-5 structure and a Goxi structure. So the struggle to attack the system through their strengths rather than their Achilles heels, and demography, number/location population settlement of the Oromo, identifying the strategic advantage. In general, as we have seen above, the Oromo struggle has 3 chapters, rapidly gaining strength in the above, both external and internal obstacles. She went beyond throwing away the experiences and became stronger. The Orissa level. Once you have reached state formation, the logical next step, to take power over the system they built. 2 chapters of the Oromo struggle and the response of the governments. Ethiopia. During the 4 chapters of the Oromo struggle described above, 4 kingdoms were in power. The struggle began during the reign of Haile Selassie. The chapter of awakening as well as the rebuilding of the community, half a one was started under that system. During the Dagu era, building continued vigorously. The overthrow of the regime is the era of the TPLF, conducted by the break in power came during the PP era. What was the relationship between the Oromo and the Sani kingdoms during these 4 regimes? Did it look like these governments have strategically how the struggle of the people? Were they trying to extinguish the Oromo? Now in this chapter of power, what has happened to the relationship between the Ethiopian government and the Oromo? Table 2, Ethiopian state versus Oromo relations. As you can see in the picture above, during the reign of Haile Selassie, the tactics. Government was a system of direct rule. Direct rule is when the co-ruling elite and the structure of the side below the community group, e.g. nation, that implements their policies. That is, they originate from the same. Accordingly, during the reign of Haile Selassie, he also holds the central authority and the structure up to the village, occupied and implemented policies because they were from the Amhara ethnic group. We call it directional management. There was little change during the Dagu era. In the revolution that overthrew the Nugas, followed by the collapse of the landlord system and the nationalist system, the lower structure had begun to involve the natives. Therefore, the system, we can thus call it a semi-direct rule. The era of the TPLF, we moved to the indirect rule. This is mediated by the power group, the group that occupies and implements that government policy on the ground, not out of a community. The Molas regime developed this strategy for a reason. It has. The first is that the consciousness of the nations has become stronger. It is difficult to manage previous systems directly from top to bottom. In other words, a unitary state in which the people, he must accept even a sham federalism because he overthrew the rebellion, was. The second is that the Vanod originated from the oppressive nation on the coast because, to lead the event by occupying the government structure from top to bottom, difficult. Hence the system of indirect rule by the parents. The British adapted their own colonial system. In this system, the people seize crucial and economic power, allowing others to reflect their own culture, people born into them, who but pretend to be a system of self-government that is not acceptable to the people, nominal self-rule, installation. The third reason is that the TPLF is a party. Nationalism is organized to fight against the supremacy of the Amharas. Advocating national rights is his early political goal.